How we doing there, boys and girls? Manthieus here, welcome back to another video. So today I wanted to talk a little bit more about patch 10.2, but more importantly some things I would like to see in patch 10.2 that we haven't really seen yet. It's very, very early in the development stages for the new patch, and so this is, I think, a really good time to maybe get some conversation going and to sort of, get some of these ideas out in the air for people to at least have a think about. And of course, if any is from Blizzard are listening, then, maybe take some of this into consideration. I want to talk about three things today. I've broke it down to three specifics that I want or would like to see come patch 10.2. Maybe not necessarily for the very beginning of patch 10.2, but these are things that I think is about time for in the game, generally speaking. These are going to really help revitalize the sort of the crafting and the goal making aspect of the game without being too detrimental overall. I do like to put a lot of thought into these sorts of things, so feel free to chip away and ask your questions if need. The first one is something that I've suspected Blizzard might want to look at doing at some point in any way, shape or form, and that is giving us a new level of tools for our professions. We're 2 patches in. By the time 10.2 lands, at least anyway, we'll have completed 2 full patches of the Dragonflight expansion, and we had access to this level of tools, we'd call them tier 2 tools, the rare tools. We've had access to this pretty much since day one, meaning that at this point in time, most people have got these. Most people have probably had the opportunity to get a couple of these even. I know for a few of my professions, I've even gone as far as to craft 2, maybe even 3 of the actual tools, so I could stack one with resourcefulness, one with inspiration, and one with multi-craft, for example. We are at a point now where most people who've been playing with the professions, at least in any decent amount, probably have these. Something that players may not necessarily have noticed is that the amount of skill that is gained by these tools, you can see you get +6, and then +10. The amount of skill that you obtain by these tools was very carefully balanced, and it was very carefully balanced so that you couldn't quite cross the finish line. You basically, if you look at many of the top end pieces of gear, you can get very close to crafting something at max quality, but you can't quite cross the finish line. I'm trying to find a good example of this right now. Most of you will know, exactly what I'm talking about here. Often a lot of the reagents fall into this category, that you can get really, really close, but you can't quite get there. And this is because they very carefully tuned the amount of plus skill points that you can obtain. And tools give a nice, easy way for Blizzard to give us just that little bit more skill, which will finally allow people to cross the finish line and get to a point where if they put all their eggs in a row, that they might finally be able to actually guarantee rank 3 crafts for a lot of this stuff. Now, there's ways and means to do this with things like, illustrious insight and stuff. But for the most part, you kind of get really close. And there's this mechanic that has been named the hidden skill value, which is a sort of a random way of sometimes you have more skill than others. People have figured all of this out and done all the maths behind this to try and alleviate the problem of not necessarily being able to guarantee quality 3. But I think it's about time to just let players do it, right? After 2 full patches, and you'll see this is a bit of a common theme with my desires going into 10.2, this theory that we've had enough time in the patch now that it is time for some change. I do think that giving us a little bit more skill, if they gave us an epic set to craft, to work to, obviously it's injecting something else into the economy. It's giving something for crafters to make. It gives an incentive for materials to change hands, for gold to change hands. Any movement of currency in the economy is good for the economy. An epic set of tools could say, for example, go +10, +10, +15. That's only a small amount of extra skill, but in many cases it would be enough so that you can finally cross the finish line and start guaranteeing quality 3 things. This to me makes a lot of sense simply because, while the rumours being that that 10.2 may potentially be the final patch of the expansion, as we roll towards the end of the expansion, it closes things off quite nicely, in my opinion. Being kind of left so close, but so far, with being able to, guarantee 2, maybe proc into quality 3 with hidden skill value. We've had enough of that now. Time to figure all of that stuff out and time to do some mathematical magic to work that in your favor. Let's get rid of all of that now. Let's give us a little bit more skill, predominantly acquired via the tools, pushes into the ability to guarantee top quality things, and let's give people the ability to guarantee things. That's really what I'm saying here. So, upgraded profession tools I would much love to see. The second point, I'm just quickly looking over my notes here. The second point that I would really like to see at this point in time, and I have been banging on about this since the start of the expansion, so I apologize for any regular viewers that have heard me say this 10 times over. But I want a system for crafters to be able to advertise what it is that they have to be able to craft. We have the crafting order system, which allows obviously for any player out there to turn around and say, right, I want this and here's some materials and I'll give you this as a tip. The tip often in many cases, as we know, doesn't even cover the cost of the missing materials, but that's a topic for another video. I think it's about time that there's something for the crafters to say, right, well, okay, I've put my time and effort into my profession. I've unlocked these recipes. I can make my slimy expulsion boots and I can make them for you at top quality. I can make them for you at quality 5. And I want 3,000 gold for crafting them for you. If you give crafters a sufficient way to say, this is what I can do and this is how much I want for it, and you provide people who are looking to buy that gear a way to say, well, you know what, I've got some of these materials and I'll pay this much, it sort of invokes a better trading platform. It invokes discussion. It sort of promotes best practices. It sort of negates a lot of this sort of spammy, scammy kind of work orders that we see. I think it's generally all around, it's just a lot fairer of a system. Now, you could argue that standing in Valdrakken and screaming and shouting in trade chat works for some people just fine. But in a game that's nearly 20 years old, it's not exactly a very elegant solution. And I think Blizzard are better than that. I think they have full means and capabilities of producing something far, far more specialist than spamming a chat channel in 2023. Now, obviously, if they have intentions to completely wipe the crafting order system from the face of the earth going into next expansion, it makes a lot of sense for them to maybe at this point not put too much effort in to something like a notice board or the equivalent of the yellow pages for crafters. You've got to be of a certain age, I guess, to even know what the yellow pages are. Zoomers, I apologize. Probably anybody under the age of 25 has got no idea what the yellow pages are, but it was the directory, right? It was the phone directory. If you needed a plumber, if you needed an electrician, if you needed, a chippy or something, you could look in the yellow pages. You could find somebody that could do that job for you and you'd give them a call. It was real simple and it worked just fine until obviously the internet came along. A directory of sorts, a notice board somewhere in Valdrakken, a way for crafters to say, hey, look, this is what I can craft. If you've just got yourself a rare pattern that's dropped from the raid and you're excited and you want to craft it for a few people, you can put up an advertisement saying that, hey, look, I can craft this, I can do it at this quality. No need, don't worry about any of the materials, 5k, whatever. You give crafters a way to say, this is what I can do. And people who want that service can come along and go, you know what? Boom. Yes. Do this for me. Job done. More than feasible, more than capable. And I think at this point, it'd be a very, very nice addition to the game, generally speaking. So my third one is quite possibly what I've titled and thumbnailed this video. The third one is something that you may feel is a bit odd coming from me, considering I've been, for the most part, against this as a system, and I'll talk about why I'm now flip-flopping my opinion. But I think it is absolutely 100% time, Blizzard, to give us some catch-up on these knowledge points. You have had plenty of time. By the time 10.2 launches, we'll have had, like I said, 2 full content patches as an opportunity to go out there and do your quests and farm up your dragon shards of knowledge and get your first time craft bonuses and do whatever it is you need to do to spec up your professions. I think it's at about time for some catch up on this. And I mean like proper catch up. I'm not talking about like another book of 10 from Renowned 15 of a new faction. No, we had all of that with the Mole Men. We had all of that, you know, back in the day with the previous rep grinds. That's not inherently catch up. Now, the reason I'm flip-flopping on my opinion here, I've always been pretty stern about the fact that the profession system doesn't need any catch-up. And this is primarily due to the fact that I think it's a bit of a myth, it's a bit of an illusion that you actually need a full spec tree. You can, if you read the tooltips and you understand where you're placing your points, you can become a specialist at crafting nearly anything in this game with 100, 150, at best 200 knowledge points. You do not need to fill out your trees to be optimal. Filling out your trees does nothing more than provide you a spread of things that you are knowledgeable on, and that is something that I've always been quite defensive on, that if you just pick something and be specialist at it, you can do that very quickly, and you always have been able to. If you truly want to be the jack of all trades, though, that's going to require more effort. That's going to require more time. But that time and that effort has passed at this point. With being, by the time 10.2 launches, probably 1 calendar year into the expansion, a full 12 months has been plenty of time for people to chip away at this. And for those like myself who have filled out the spec trees and had these filled out for quite some time now, I think that we've probably had our fair share at the pie in terms of being able to take advantage of this. Now I think is a really good time for Blizzard to step in and give people a way to quite speedily fill these trees. The reason being is they're not super useful anymore. The advantages that you can obtain by having a full spec tree is neither here nor there. When you look at catch-up gearing systems, the reason we get catch-up gearing systems at the end of a patch is because we're going to go into a new one very soon, and all of that gear is going to be irrelevant anyway. It just gives you something to do, right? It gives you a quick way for your alts to get some at least reasonable gear before the next patch hits. It has long since been useful to really, or it has long since been advantageous to have your points in the right places. That was something that was very critical at the beginning of the expansion when there was only X amount of points to be obtained. But now, you know, players have had the opportunity to have these trees filled for ages, and there'll be many, many, many people on your server that have done this. Please don't think that I'm a special snowflake that has these spec trees filled. There are many, many players out there that just by doing a handful, you know, 2 or 3 weekly quests since Dragonflight is launched have easily been able to fill these spec trees by now. How do I think this could be done, though? I always like to provide some sort of solution to any theory. And I think, personally, a really elegant solution could be these supply crates that we have recently seen in patch 10.2. Now, it's early development, and I did a video about these just yesterday. So if you want the full ins and outs of what we know about these supply crates, please check that video out. But I think supplying shipments of goods in exchange for knowledge points for your professions could be a very, very smart way for Blizzard to provide some catch-up, because it does a handful of things. Number one, it obviously invigorates the economy from a material standpoint. If people want to quickly level up and gain access to a large amount of knowledge points, they can do, yet they are either going to have to do one of two things. They are either going to have to go farm a bunch of materials to make these shipments, or they are going to have to purchase a bunch of these materials off the auction house. Now, if a huge quantity of people decide that purchasing materials off the auction house is a good thing to do, all of a sudden you might start to see the price rise on materials, meaning everybody out there that has looked at gathering so far in Dragonflight and looked at like the numbers, looked at the amount of gold in their bags after an hour and realized, wow, this is dog shit, this is really not worth my time at all, might all of a sudden have reason to go out and do a little bit of farming again. And it will distribute things relatively evenly as well. It will, what do they say? Rising tide lifts all ships or something. Considering the way that these shipments work, if somebody decides that they're going to buy a huge amount of herbs to quickly level up one of their profession knowledge points via shipments, then that might pull up the price of herbs, meaning that, well, if the price of herbs has gone up slightly, then the next person that comes along might look at Ceravite and they might do the same, and then it rises the value of a lot of the materials sort of equally. Now, obviously, we don't know what these shipments are actually truly designed for at this point. Maybe in a week or two's time we'll find out, but I do think that if it's linked in some way to a catch-up system for knowledge points, it would be quite an elegant way of doing it. So yeah, there we go. That's my 3 things that I would like to see in patch 10.2. Feel free to leave your comments, like I said at the beginning of this video. I feel that at this point in the development of patch 10.2, the early stages of the PTR, this is probably the best time to be vocal about these things. If you see something that you either agree with or disagree with, now's the time, because at least it gives Blizzard some opportunity to do something about it if enough people, stand up and shout about it. So let me know your thoughts on this video, boys and girls. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it. Consider subscribing if you're new around here, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.